Thank you for joining us today. The Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast can be found on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. All of our articles, videos, podcasts, and rankings can now be found in one place at anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. The website, as well as our Discord server, Twitter, and YouTube, is linked in the description below. On behalf of all of us here at Angle, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. All right, welcome everybody. This is episode 5 of the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. My name is Andrew. I am the founder and one of the analysts here at Angle Fantasy Basketball. I am joined, first off, by our resident in-house draft expert, Mitchell. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. Got to work from home, and I'm excited to talk the ranks with all you.
All right, very good. We got also Mr. Buy Sell himself, Braxton. How you doing, bud?
I'm feeling really good.
All right, very good. So today we are here to do another rank wars. So today is going to be our second rank wars that we've done. So first off, I'm going to direct your attention here to our webpage. So all of our videos, rankings, all of our our articles too, can all be found on this website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. You can see some of our most recent articles up on the top here. There's Braxton's buy sell for this week, very popular article that we have going on a weekly basis, as well as yours truly has an article today on what the Memphis Grizzlies should do. Scrolling down here, we're looking at our newest January Dynasty ranking update. So as I said earlier, this is another episode of Rank Wars. So we're going to bring you guys one of these episodes every time we do an update on our Dynasty rankings. So what happens here in Rank Wars is that we, the analysts, are each going to comb through each other's rankings, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to identify one player in each of the other analysts' rankings that we disagree with where their ranking is at for that respective analyst. So each of us is going to take turns here. We're going to basically confront a specific analyst, let them know the player in question, as well as let them know if their ranking is too high or too low in that regard. So cue the clip. It's time for another Rank Wars. All right, so to start us off with Rank Wars, we're going to begin once again with Mitchell. So, Mitch, you are going to choose your first victim. Who's it going to be, dude?
So this is going to be for Braxton. And the player I'm choosing is Jalen Williams, where Braxton has him ranked at 59. I chose Jalen Williams because I believe his rank is a bit too low, considering the fact that Jalen Williams is ranked 44th for the season, 20th in the last month, 24th in the last 2 weeks, and 22 this past week, over the likes of Josh Giddey, who is 160 for the season and is a real like a dichotomy of what Jalen Williams is in a backcourt mate to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And Braxton, I'd like to know your thoughts on your position on this stance.
So I'm so glad you brought up Giddey. I'll get to Giddey in a second. But for Jalen Williams, I'll concede that he probably needs to be a couple spots higher, like 49 or 50. But to me, he really profiles as a Tobias Harris type fantasy producer. And I feel like what he's doing right now is about at his ceiling. On this Thunder team, I think long term he's at best the third option once Chet fully gets going, who's I feel like some people are forgetting is a rookie and still getting his feet wet. He's only averaging 13 points per game right now. In terms of something I thought was really interesting, in terms of his field goal percentage, which is carrying a lot of his value right now, his 2-point percentage is actually slightly down from last year, with his 3-point percentage at an absurd 44%. On 3 attempts per game. They're not super high volume, but he only shot 35% from 3 last year. To me, it would be wise to anticipate him to come back down to earth at some point from behind the arc. I know the free throw is relatively high as well at 82%, but again, that's something that's somewhat lower volume and only three attempts per game he's averaging. And another thing I thought was interesting is that the steals and rebounds are actually slightly down from last year in a larger role. He's playing more minutes. So it's not unreasonable to attribute this 4-point scoring jump to the absurdly high rate he's been knocking down threes, in addition to the extra few minutes he's been playing per game. Like I mentioned, this really feels like about at his ceiling for me. And sticking him, in mid 30s, like you guys have, with long-term number one and number two options, just doesn't feel right to me. And then I'm going to address Giddey real quick. I'm a sucker for a triple-double threat type guy. He's only 21, and I cannot believe so many people are down on him after how high we saw him ranked on some lists last year. The counting stats being down are directly correlated to the minutes being down, probably about 5 or 6 minutes from 31 to 25. The per 36 stats are largely the same. So that would indicate you're not really seeing any kind of regression in terms of his abilities. Plus, he's also shooting career highs at 3-point percentage and free throw percentage. A trade or an injury, and he's a nightly triple-double threat with top 40 or 50 upside, with no clear weakness, in my opinion, outside of maybe turnovers. And I like him over Jalen Williams just because of the massive upside in the counting stats categories. Whereas J-Dub, I feel like right now is being, in terms of his ranking, he's being carried a little bit by that field goal percentage and his scoring. And he's just slightly above average in those other spots. And I know I just talked for a while, so if you want to chime back in, feel free.
Yeah, you make a great point. A trade with Giddey would really elevate his value, as right now he's not really that lead ball handler or initiator next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, someone who seems to be a perennial MVP candidate for many years to come. I just really believe Jalen Williams' long-term upside next to Shai is a lot better fit. So I can really see all his percentages being sustainable. He shot really well last year from the field. He shot really well at Santa Clara. So I think the shooting is real legit. Yeah, I know you mentioned the steals have been regressed a bit since the previous year as a rookie, but there is a stat that he has the most tip balls, and deflections. And not all deflections count as a steal, but it's a good indicator that they could eventually fluctuate into, that stat. Andrew, I know you follow the OKC Thunder a lot, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Most definitely. So I know Brax pointed out that Williams was being carried by field goal percentage and threes, which could both likely come down. I, can see definitely an argument for that.
Field goal percentage and points.
Points. Okay.
Threes,
points. And was threes in there or no? It's just mainly points.
I did talk about threes, but I don't think he's getting carried by threes.
Okay.
The 3-point field goal percentage, I was saying, was adding to him a little bit.
So in previous seasons, I think he was primarily more carried by the steals that he had. And I'm glad that Mitch touched upon this, because this was a stat that I saw around too. I think it was Matt Lawson that said the stat that was like, the steals weren't translating much for Jalen at the beginning of this season. And again, like I mentioned, that's a lot of what carried his value in previous seasons. But the deflection rate was, still towards the top of the league too. And then I think it was since December or something like that, he's either leading the league in steals or second in steals. So, even if the scoring does come down, I do expect to see the fantasy value and fantasy rank overall still be carried by the steals that are coming back, and those were not originally there in the beginning of the year. We all talk about all the time, the Thunder need to consolidate, the Thunder need to, make room either for some of these draft picks or get rid of them, bring in another star, get ready to make a run. So it's just, a very curious thing to keep an eye on to see if they make a run that either has an impact on the usage of Williams or Giddey or pretty much any of them. But I think those two guys in particular are the ones that could see a change either of scenery, primarily for Giddey in that regard, or just a change to usage and role if the Thunder actually do make this fabled, consolidation trade that we all talk about. All right. So that's going to cover it for Jalen Williams for Mitchell's first one. So let's go now to Braxton. Braxton, who is your first choice of accusation going to be?
Let's do Mitch. I'll come right back at you, and I'm gonna go with Keyonte George at 78, who I think is too high. And I'll say my piece, and then I'll let you go ahead and go. Uh, until this guy shoots over 40%, he's not going to finish anywhere near 78 at the end of the season. The assists are nice, but he's really going to need his steal rate way up to be anything but harmful. He's currently averaging 0.5 or half to steal a game in that large 24-minute per game role. And it's pretty concerning, as we usually see defensive stats translate over well from college, in which he did average slightly over 1 a game, which is fine. But I really think that it's going to need to translate over. To me, he profiles as Fred VanVleet without the defensive stats, and that's somebody that's really going to hurt you.
Okay, great. Yeah, you make up some real good points. And yeah, obviously, Keyonte George isn't going to rank anywhere near the 78 mark by the end of the year, but I'm looking at a more holistic perspective. And this is more so a prediction than an actual, redraft ranking. You make up a great
Can I
point.
just
The
chime in
shooting
real
is
quick?
very putrid.
Can
Yeah,
I chime in real quick? I didn't mean 78 at the end of the season. I don't think he's going to finish near 78 at the end of any season he plays ever. Sorry, I just want to get
got it. Got it.
Go ahead and go.
So yeah, I just want to reassess the shooting. There are some bright spots. He does have high free throw percentage, which is a direct correlation in most cases that eventually he'll improve his 3-point percentage. Keyonte George is someone who really relies on that 3-point game to create like separation. And that's part of his scoring repertoire, right? Overall, I think he's taking a lot of dumb shots and he's settling for a lot of tough stuff like step backs. But I think eventually he's going to be groomed more into the point guard and next to Colin Sexton in the front court. I don't really necessarily believe Chris Dunn, one of your favorites, Brax, is a long-term piece for the Utah Jazz. So I like that long-term perspective next to Sexton, where he can, really feed Sexton, who is, a scorer in itself. Additionally, I'd love to gamble on a player in Dynasty where they have a potential to reach 7 to 8 assists per game in their prime. We talk about categorical scarcity in 9 category leagues, and assists is one of the number one categories that, there isn't a lot of, assists in the pool as of now. Keyonte George is also leading the rookies right now in assists, I believe over Scoot and less minutes. He has great self-creation tools. Yeah, he takes some tough shots that aren't necessary, but he does have that wiggle, as they say, and ability to create space as a tough shot maker moving into his prime. So I'm a bit more optimistic than most, but I am going to stand my ground just because of that potential. And when talking about Keyonte George, why are we still so high on Scoot Henderson, who has similar, flaws? Playing as a rookie point guard is one of the hardest positions to get used to and acclimate towards. So we have to have a little bit of a grace period, 1 to 2 years. Look at Trae Young, look at De'Aaron Fox, look at Lonzo Ball. In 2 to 3 years, we could really see Keyonte really blossom into his own. So I'd stay a little bit patient. 78 is a bit optimistic, but I don't see himself being valued any less than a top 100 asset moving forward.
I'm going to have to, hop in here on, I guess, on both of your sides here. So Brax is right that it is a little bit too high. Mitch is, admitted to this, but I do, in Mitch's favor, think that he should belong in the top 100 or a top 110 minimum. So like he mentioned, rookies, especially for point guard, that's the hardest position for rookies to play. In college too, when he was in Baylor, a lot of us really just talked about Keyonte George as a scorer, kind of a chucker too. Like his low field goal percentage was also something that persisted for him in college. So if anything, the assists and playmaking were kind of a newer facet to his game. The moment he got to the Jazz, they decided they're going to make him, handle point guard responsibilities as well as playmaking too. So that's a positive development. Like Mitch mentioned, his free throws are fine. So the, mechanics of the shooting, it looks good. It's just, this is something where it's pretty rare to see a rookie point guard come in and do well immediately, especially if we're talking fantasy, because that's obviously for 9 category, that's going to bring in all the efficiency stats, and then that's where we see some of these rookies. Like some of us in fantasy can even say rookies have a harder time because we're looking at field goal percentage, turnovers, and things like that. Whereas, if we're talking points league fantasy or just real life in general, they might look a little bit less at that and more at, how they're scoring and playmaking, especially if our usual fans only looking at that. But in fantasy, it does look more glaring when we see, someone shooting below 40% for us 9-cat players and stuff like that. But I do think Keyonte George is someone who was a hit in regards to a pick from this most recent draft class.
Can I come back in one more thing, Andrew?
Let's
do you
do
mind
it.
real quick?
Let's do it.
This isn't necessarily, I guess, not necessarily in response to yours, but if we wanted to bring up Josh Giddey with Jalen Williams, I feel like it's only fair to bring up Josh Giddey with Keyonte George. Mitch, you have Josh Giddey like 2 spots below Keyonte George, and that's something that doesn't make sense to me. I think in the same way that the Jalen Williams over Josh Giddey doesn't make sense to you. At what point? And this is, I think, opens a really interesting discussion on almost like the shiny new toy having, inherently more dynasty value. Josh Giddey is only 1 year older than Keyonte George, right? And he's already shown, he's in his 3rd year in the league, obviously. He's already shown that he can be that triple-double threat that we know he can be, or that he can turn into, rather. And it doesn't make sense to me to have somebody who's struggling as much as Keyonte George. And I'm not saying he can't improve. I mean, but at the same time, I think he's shooting 41% on 2s right now. To have him above somebody who's already there and around the same age, and Josh Giddey, that doesn't make sense to me. We don't have to go super in depth about Josh Giddey even more than we already have, because that's not what I guess that's not what I called you out on. But yeah, I just think that's really interesting. Is it because George is newer and has more perceived potential, or is it because everybody's so down on Giddey right now?
I mean, you are right.
Yeah,
the shiny new toy does get value like that. Just wanted to,
yeah. So you do make up a great point. But in itself, age is such an abstract concept in fantasy value. Age doesn't necessarily correlate to experience. Josh Giddey has 2 years of NBA experience, NBA training, NBA coaching, and development under his belt. Keyonte George is really being thrust into the league. He doesn't have, a real great, I guess, team to work around with. There is no bona fide star. I guess Lauri Markkanen, you could say, is a potential all-star, but Giddey is playing with SGA, J-Dub, one of the best rookies we've seen in a while, in Chet Holmgren. So let's give Keyonte a grace period. I do want to say, yes, shiny new toy and whatnot, but when scouting and looking at Keyonte George, I was a huge fan watching him in Baylor. He does have the potential to be a number 1 option, someone who does score 22, 23 points per game. I don't see that in Josh Giddey. He plays more of a secondary creator role. So I'm looking at the potential apex upside, and I think I have to take that type of gamble with Keyonte George moving forward. But, like I said, it is close in my ranks.
Well said.
All right,
well
very
said.
good. All right, so let's move on to the next one. This one's going to be my turn. So I'm going to pick on Braxton here. Braxton, I noticed you've got DeAnthony Melton at 137th. So in my opinion, I feel like this is too low. The years that he was in Memphis, all of us in fantasy always talked about, this is the per 36 monster. Just wait till Melton gets this bigger role. We were kind of always waiting for it to happen. He gets traded to Philadelphia and starts playing 29 minutes per night. So according to Basketball Monster, I'll never use Yahoo again. You roasted the shit out of me last time. According to Basketball Monster, Melton is at 92nd right now. Okay. He's only 25 years old. So he's, entering the prime of his career. It's probably a year or two away from that. Again, with the huge role here, he's not an older player. I just have to wonder why he's either not within your top 100 or at least much closer to it. Because when we get to the 130s area is when we're looking at guys who either, put up top 100 value, but are just a lot older. Some, recent like lottery picks that we're still kind of waiting on, or guys that just have a stat set that always hovers around 110 or something like that. So I was, just curious to know your thoughts on Melton after he was, a 9-cat darling for such a long time, and we're finally seeing him in this big role.
So yeah, again, like Jalen Williams, I'll concede that Melton probably needs to be a few spots higher. But I really have a hard time getting high on guys who have a bit of an inflated rank due to one or two categories. And, even with this really nice season he's having, and it's funny you mentioned Basketball Monster. I use hashtag for my rankings. He's ranked outside the top 100 due to his super harmful field goal percentage. Yeah, the steals are nice, but I mean, those can vary wildly from season to season. And I like to think back to Gary Trent's top 40 finish, I think 2 years ago now, which was carried due to his steals. Obviously, Melton's getting more assists than Trent ever will. But yeah, and after the season, he's an unrestricted free agent. It's very possible he wants to get paid and sign somewhere that isn't as lacking in depth as his Sixers team, which could hurt his value even further. Also, if the Sixers make a trade this year to bring another high usage guy like DeRozan or Levine, like they've been rumored to, we should see his points drop from 12, maybe closer to 9 or 10, maybe even slightly lower with the way he's been shooting the ball this year. And I say 9 or 10 because that's how he'd been shooting the ball previously, the past 2 seasons, both in Philadelphia with James Harden and in Memphis. Also, his assists are not really high enough for me to be okay with that field goal percentage, just at 3.2 assists per game. And he essentially has a floor of 0 on any night where his shot isn't falling. Granted, the nights where his shots do fall and he steals the ball 4 times, it's a nice night. But a night where he has 3 points, 3 boards, 1 assist, and 1 steal is not really somebody I'm going to have in my top 100 like you do, Andrew, with him at 88.
So one thing I'll quickly add before we'll see if Mitch has anything to say. I know you mentioned now you don't like guys that are carried by one statistic. So I will mention that Melton's career average for steals is at 1.4. This is even after he was playing, less than 25 minutes a night for his career in Memphis. And then I forgot he spent a year in Phoenix too. My goodness. Yep. And then career average of 0.5 blocks too. So, if he isn't going to produce on offense like he is nowadays, the hopes is that he's at least going to get juice and stocks. I agree, 3.2 assists isn't anything to be crazy about. I'm not, saying, oh yeah, Melton's crucial to my assists or anything, but it's more so just about the defense. I mean, we are playing 9 categories. So, the 2 threes, good field goals, good free throws. He's at least shooting 2 free throws a game. Nothing crazy, but he's not going to hurt you there either. And then the defense, and then not crazy turnovers either. So it's just what I like about Melton. And especially too, his age is going to inflate his value for me a little bit too.
Yeah, I said 1 or 2 categories. I really should have just said 1. The steals will launch anybody up the rankings. And I don't disagree with what you said. He doesn't hurt you much of anywhere besides field goal percentage. But just because of that field goal percentage, and he's taking almost 10 shots a game, I would like to see more assists and maybe points from somebody who's, shooting that poorly.
Fair enough. Mitch, anything to add on DeAnthony?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to side a little bit with Andrew on this, being a DeAnthony Melton owner in Dynasty leagues. He is only 25 years old. And you mentioned he shoots 10 shots a game, but that's not really that many in the grand scheme of things, right? Most Dynasty leagues are played with 8 active roster spots, right? We have to look at a kind of like a grand perspective, and not our 30 teams where it starts 6, where it could be a little bit more inflated in terms of being a detriment. 10 shots a game isn't really that bad on 40% shooting. I do want to mention that. The steals, like Andrew was saying, I just want to reinstate, he is averaging 1.4 steals a game for the career. So it does seem like it's not like Gary Trent, where it was kind of scheme dependent. DeAnthony Melton's going to get deflections anywhere he goes, right? We're seeing him in 3 different situations. And he doesn't hurt you in turnovers. His free throw percentage is a respectable 83%, career average 78. So he's not going to hurt you there as well. The 3-point shooting, he's, I would say, above average, shooting 37% for his career. And DeAnthony Melton, I believe, is just a solid mid-level roster guy that you can own in Dynasty, and he's not really going to hurt you anywhere moving forward.
All right, very good. All right, moving on. Going into round two here. Mitchell, it is your turn. Who do you got now?
So the last person standing for me is you, Andrew. You have Zion Williamson at 33. So Zion is ranked 149 for the season. His points are down 5 a game. His free throw efficiency is down 6%. He has lower rebounds and for his frame and stature, really. And his stock numbers are down from last year as well. Even when you go into -1 ranks, really negating his putrid free throw percentage, Zion ranks 61. So even if you are punting his worst category, he's nowhere near that top 50, top 40 finish that you have him as, especially as a dynasty asset. And also, we have to bring up the injury concerns, right? It's like every other year, Zion plays above 50 games. And I think in his first 4 seasons, he only averaged 35 games per season. So it's a huge injury risk. And I want to proceed with caution when there are better and more durable options in the top 35, like De'Aaron Fox. So I'd love to hear your take on why Zion Williamson is so high.
So for Zion, so what I was looking at, playing around with a couple different sites here when I was trying to fully look at rankings, punting out free throws. I mean, again, this is somebody where when you're taking Zion, you're already conceding the fact that you're going to have to punt the category, which is most likely going to have free throws. This is similar to what you have to do. Like if you're, first round and redraft and you want to draft Giannis, you might have to concede already that you're going to punt free throws. I mean, it's possible to save it with him, but that's beside the point. So what it is, though, is that, yes, when you look at the 9Cat ranking overall, it doesn't ever really look great for these types of players where there is one specific category where they're detrimental. Like even think about during his days when he was actually useful. Think about, Ben Simmons had a good 9Cat rank, but he was atrocious at free throws. So if you had him in his useful days, obviously not nowadays, you had to concede that you were likely going to be punting free throws. So when I was playing around with stuff on Basketball Monster, after punting free throws, I think it was already at -1 and then punted free throws. So that's punting free throws and turnovers. He went up to 41. So that, due to, and the fact that he's 23 years old and a marquee NBA player, this is somebody who's constantly in headlines, who's constantly featured in all these different NBA media images. Obviously, yes, the scoring is down. I want to see the scoring come back again. I've written about Zion like 2 or 3 times, I think, in my newsletters so far this year. It's, one thing I do note, which I still do admit, is that he's showing okay durability this year, but I think it's also coming at the cost of him losing the explosiveness that we all know and loved him for. Like the Zion that busts through his shoe playing at Duke, he's definitely gone. I'm not going to admit that guy's still here. So 33 can be a bit like crazy for somebody to see when looking at 9Cat overall. So I did have a punt mindset in mind when I put him there, and I probably shouldn't have done that. But I just think he's one of those players where if you have him in the right build, he is going to be useful to you. Maybe there's someone who just has better overall 9Cat sets that should be moved above him. And I know you mentioned Fox. I'm almost 100% positive I have Fox above him, but there could obviously be some people within the 30s range that, I have Fox at 22. So there could obviously be some people in the 30s range that are better than him. But someone like Fox, is a way better than Zion, and I even put that on there. So it is punt dependent. Yes, he's not as explosive, but this is just more so due to his age and the overall hype and potential that made him the #1 pick not that long ago.
Yeah. Before you jump in, Brax, I do want to, take note on that Ben Simmons comparison. Look, I know Ben Simmons hurt you in turnovers and threes and free throw, right? But he was a real anchor in steals and blocks. That's not something Zion can do, right? I mean, Zion kind of compensates that with a little bit more points per game at like 21, but he's a net negative in free throws. He's a net negative in threes. It's pretty much non-existent in his game. He doesn't get you any steals or blocks. I think his averages are around like 0.5 each, and he gets you a lot of turnovers. And I've been watching a lot of Pelicans games lately, and the offense, frankly, isn't being run through him anymore. It's more with CJ and Brandon Ingram initiating the offense. And he's more like that term, a grenade, right? If it's at the 5 seconds left on a shot clock, they kind of just give it to Zion for him to create and make something out of it. But the offense and the motion, it's not really, integrated in terms of him as the sole emphasis like it was his first 4 seasons. And I do want to bring that up.
I'd like to just chime in. I mean, I mentioned previously, I'm such a sucker for guys who can contribute across the board and with the counting stats, and Zion really fits that mold. I don't know if I'd have him at 33, but Mitch, where you've got him at 58 is just way too low to me. I mean, yes, the injury concerns are valid, but somebody who can score over 20 points a game and contribute in rebounds the way he does, has the assist upside the way he does. And by the way, the steals number you said was incorrect. He averaged 1.1 last year. And this year he's averaging 0.9. So the steals are there for him as well as that field goal anchor. And if he stays healthy, I mean, he's somebody. And you mentioned the 9-cat rank. I mean, this is another one of those things where it really just kind of makes you rethink 9-cat rankings in general. I mean, you look at like what he's doing and how much that could help different fantasy squads, and it's like, I don't remember what you said he was ranking on the year, but is he actually the 144th most valuable player, or is the 9-cat ranking system kind of skewed in a way to where it knocks him down? Like, would you rather have him or some like Zubats, right, where Zubats is just rebound, blocks, and field goal percentage, albeit on low volume? I'm taking Zion so easily. So yeah, it's somewhere in between 33 and 58 is where I'd have him. I think one is too high, one is too low.
All right, fair enough. All right, Brax, let's bring it back to you. Who's up next?
Yes, Andrew, you have Andrew Nesmith at 211. Oh, see, Aaron Nesmith at 211. I mean, what else does he have to do to get some respect around here, man? He plays a huge role on a good team. And he's having a career year ranked at 125, although I know I just said some bad things about 9-cat ranking in general. What's dragging him down a little bit is his free throw at 70%, but he's a career 80% free throw shooter, and he barely gets the line at 1.6 attempts per game. The Pacers just gave him a 3 years, $33 million extension. Clearly a huge part of their plans. Improvement on both 2-point and 3-point percent shooting. He's shooting 56% on twos, up from 49, and 45 on three, up from 36, which likely isn't sustainable from three, but still, the steals and the blocks are up, and the turnovers are actually down under 1 per game with an increased role. Outside of the top 200 is just it's madness. Malik Beasley, who has a similar stat profile, who's performing worse with no long-term security, is 30 spots higher on your list. And Quentin Grimes, who is like 60 days or so younger than Nesmith, is almost 50 spots higher, even more crazy. Quentin Grimes sucks now, dude. He's having a terrible year, and he's fallen out of favor with Tom Thibodeau because they got better players with him. Now I need to take a second to breathe.
What does falling out of favor with Tom Thibodeau really mean, though? In the grand scheme of things,
you mess around too much, you'll turn into Evan Fournier. I'm not even sure that dude's allowed to sit on the bench anymore.
That's a low blow, Brax. All right. So let's address this. So I don't think, quickly on Quentin Grimes, I don't think he sucks. I just think he's in the Tibbs doghouse, which
I think he sucks.
All right. To each his own, but I just think he's in the Tibbs doghouse, and I think he's one of those guards where if he was in a different space, he would do better. But let's go to the topic of this conversation, which is Aaron Nesmith. So outside of the top 200, one thing I'm going to concede immediately is that I have way too many old people ahead of him. Dynasty rankings, age should inflate some value. So, I mean, I have names like Gordon Hayward, Harrison Barnes, Al Horford, stuff like that ahead of him. That should probably be changed in the next update. Most definitely. I mean, once we start moving upwards, there's some guys that are near the same age range, like, Grady Dick, Jet Howard, Julian Strother, Usman Dieng are starting to get near that range. So it's kind of do you want more production with someone who's still younger, or want to see if one of these guys turns out to be even better? You kind of get your choice right there. So yes, some of those older names, obviously Nesmith's going to be around for at least 8 years longer than these guys that are some of those guys that I named off. So, he definitely needs to be above some of those guys. But, he's good for 3-and-D, and he's good for a big man build too, because he's not going to like tank your field goal percentage or anything. But I just still look at him as a low end guy. I mean, he doesn't go like the Pacers kind of spread that usage around a lot. I mean, it's probably going to change a bit now that Siakam's there, but other than Halliburton, who took a good amount of usage, it's kind of spread amongst everybody else for that team there. So Nesmith, doesn't have a ton of usage to work with there. Not that he ever really was a huge usage guy, but I just look at him as just a low end guy who's nice to have if he fits your build. Again, 3-and-D build. He contributes good steals and blocks, and then obviously he has a good field goal percentage. So if you had a build that was focused on, big men, maybe you punted free throws, you need blocks and steals, field goal percentage, Nesmith's going to fit that too. He's just not going to be someone that's going to be of crazy value to you. So yes, he deserves to be above some of these older dudes that are on this list. I mean, even when I was pointed out where I had Nesmith at, I was kind of surprised at myself. I don't even remember. I was like, I thought I had him a little bit higher, and obviously I'm admitting that he deserves to be higher here too. So, Nesmith is one, though. Again, I'm not going to put him up too high because he's, just kind of a low end guy, but there are some names on this list he does deserve to be above.
I just want to add, Mitch, you're not safe either, man. You got him pretty low at like 176 or something. I just want to say you're lucky Andrew had him like 40 spots lower than that. 176 is still too low for me, man. Just looking at the list here, I mean, you've got guys like Paul Reed, like 30 spots ahead of Nesmith. I just don't understand what he needs to do. It's not like he's doing this like on a bad team, right? Like the Wizards or something, right? He's on a good team with this rock solid role now. Yes, the field goal is probably not sustainable, but I think I would actually wager if we looked around at like other lists in the community, he's probably, in that range as well, like the 170 to 200 range. I think he's due to like to jump into that next tier with some of these guys. He needs a little bit more respect, in my opinion.
All right.
Yeah, I think I kind of fall between you, Brax, and Andrew. I mean, as we see it in my ranks, I have him around the 170 mark. I think 130 is a little bit optimistic. Granted, he does have a great role. He's outplaying Buddy Hield and the Pacers, but his value is kind of tied towards his efficiency from three. And in the last 3 seasons, he's shot pretty poorly, around like 30% from the 3-point line. Let me see, just to confirm. Yeah, he shot 36, 27%. 37% all in low volume. So I'm not really too sure I'm sold on that efficiency sticking in the long term. He is a great fit. He is a tenacious defender. So on a team that really needs defense, in all honesty. I do see him as a potential long-term fit next to Halliburton, but I'm not too sure that he's going to be starting, moving forward in the offseason, right? The Pacers are going to try to make moves. They're going to look at some of the hot names in free agency. They do have championship aspirations, right? We did see their commitment to really build forward and contend for the title picture by trading for Pascal Siakam. So let's really see where this plays out. And, he may break into the 150 for me if he is consistent enough till the end of the season. I like what I see. In the earlier offseason rankings, I didn't even have him in, I think, the top 250. I'd say so. He's trending in the right direction. I do like what I see, but I just need a little bit larger sample size before I'm fully sold in that 150 mark where you have him, Brax.
Fair enough.
Brax could be onto something, though. This could be a riser in Dynasty. So, I do hear him in there. So, all right. Moving on to our last player to be discussed. It is my turn. Mitch, Malik Monk, having a career year. Most points he's ever scored. The assists are new, 5.5 assists. 0.7 blocks. I'm not going to act like that's something that's going to sustain, but it's at least nice for this year. He's ranked 94th on Basketball Monster. You have him at 138. He's only 26 years old, playing 26 minutes a night. The Kings are still, a playoff team. That's just good to see. So it's not like he's doing this on a bad team, like the year that the Lakers were bad when they had him. So, I'm just looking to see why somebody who is not old, it's not like he's, 33 doing this. He's 26 years old. And this is a career year for him. He's kind of, taking up a very big role on the scoring front for the Sacramento Kings. And it's, right now for his contract, it's only being paid $9 million. That's an amazing value contract, kind of one of the best current ones going on in the NBA right now. So I'd just love to know, what Monk can do to move up in your rankings a bit.
Yeah, everyone loves Malik Monk. He is that electric scorer off the bench. He's someone that's really exciting. He hits a lot of threes. He's expanded his game with the assists. But, long term, where does he fit? Right. I scour Reddit, in preparation for these rank wars. I'm looking at the public perception on Malik Monk in the community of the Sacramento Kings. And let's look into the offseason. He's going to get paid, and that's no guarantee he's going to stick in Sacramento. Look at everywhere else that he's played, besides the Lakers, right? And on the Hornets, Brax, as you may know, he's not a great defender. He has really poor field goal shooting. He's very inconsistent. And as someone who really relies on these counting stats and not defensive stats, how high can he really go at 25 minutes per game, right? When we look at Malik Monk, yes, he's young, but his career has already played out to the fact that he caps out as a sixth man because of those, deficiencies on defense. He's never going to be a long-term starter. He's not like Isaiah Quick or Emmanuel Quickly, right? Someone's a little bit on the shorter side who is a former sixth man of the year candidate, right? But Emmanuel Quickly does have a defensive edge to him that Malik Monk lacks. So I'm really having a hard time pushing him forward near the top 100 like you guys, because I don't know where his future lies long term, right? If he stays in Sacramento, sure. But Sacramento is also looking to make that extra push to be real legitimate championship contenders. We've seen the rumors for them trying to, really bring on Pascal Siakam. So what is a third star next to Sabonis and Fox going to do to him, right? Because really, Malik Monk is that third initiator. Once they bring in another star, what's going to be his role, right? Is he going to be more on the spot up, on the, on the 3-point line? I don't know. I don't really know that. So I'm not really confident long term in Malik Monk and his value as a top 100 asset.
All right, so I'll quickly just add quickly in regards to Emmanuel quickly. So you were mentioning, this six-man type of role. I feel like some of at least the premier players that are in this role, this six-man microwave bench scorer, some of them usually can hover around that low 100s low 100s range, or like the 120 or lower, something like that. Or sorry, 120 or higher up. So for quickly, he before the Raptors trade was usually hovering around like the low 90s to early 100s range. And then that's kind of where I think Monk should be at now. Obviously, the trade boosted quickly way up there. He's younger, he has more potential, but Monk is showing more counting stats that we haven't seen previously, which is nice to see. And it's not like he's doing this on 32 minutes, which obviously then would create a much bigger question of, what if there's a trade that makes all these minutes go away? He's not getting huge minutes. It's only at 26, yet he's still doing this. So, a six-man player within the rotation is usually going to play around 25 to 26 minutes. So it's really all just about if he can keep this up within this game. Anything to add, Brax?
I think you covered it. I will just say it's, and I think I have him the highest out of all three of us. It's pretty absurd the stat lines he puts up in, like, you'll check the box score and he'll play like 24 minutes and have like 25 points and 10 assists. And it's like, how did they must literally not put the ball in anybody else's hands when he's out there. Or sorry, when Fox or Sabonis are sitting. And I know they try to stagger them as much as possible, but it's just crazy the usage Malik gets when he's out there.
Yeah, and you do make a great point, right? Malik Monk is that third creator, really the second creator coming from a fast break or from the half court line, right? Because Sabonis kind of plays in the mid post. Malik Monk, he's playing with Keegan Murray, someone who's more stationary, playing off ball. He's playing with Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, players that don't necessarily need the ball. Let's think of another situation, right? Like any other team, let's say he goes to the Chicago Bulls in the offseason. They have so many different self creators. is Malik Monk gonna realistically be a third option on any other team? I just don't really see it, and I just want to end it there.
So what we're going to do now, that's going to conclude this session of Rank Wars. So you'll be able to see the next one once we do our next Dynasty update, probably sometime in either late February or March, most likely. Now, really quickly, we're going to cover our Angle Redraft League. So we ran 3 redraft leagues at the start of the year. They are all still going alive and well during the season right now. So we're going to name off the top 6 of each of the leagues. I'm going to start with the Fantrax League. So let me pull this up here really quickly. All right, so checking out here onto the home screen of our Fantrax League, we're going to look at the top 6 here. So we got Mitchell in first place. I am very close behind by a half a game in second place. We got Weiss in third place. UAP Markers, our boy Worth in fourth place. Ignaz is in fifth place. And Gabe Puster Posey is in sixth place. He holds the lead over the Outsiders by 4 games. So that is the top 6 playoff picture. Mitch, let them know about our Yahoo league. So both of these leagues were standard snake drafts. So the Fantrax League and now this Yahoo league. Mitch, let them know about the Yahoo league.
Yeah, this is a very competitive league where it's really just the top 2 are kind of solidified in the playoff picture. I do want to mention seeds 3 through 10. Andrew, I think you said it's between 4 games of a difference.
2.5 games from 4 to 10. It's only 2.5 games apart.
2.5 games. That's how competitive it is. Wow. So number 1, we have LGI Till the Day I Die. 2 is Richard's Remarkable Team. 3, Nam's Burner, Nam is So Hot. 4, the Unibrow Lord, Andrew's brother. 5, Chet GPT, and Gilbert's Groovy Team rounding out the playoff picture at 6. Andrew and my team, Andrew and I are not doing so hot, but we're still creeping in the playoff race. So hopefully we come back with a better update.
All right, we got a third league. This league was done through an auction draft and is commissioned by Braxton. So Braxton, let us know about the auction league. How you guys doing over there?
Yeah, well, I'm doing pretty well. I'm sitting nicely atop first. It's kind of a similar situation where those first 2 seeds have pulled out ahead of everybody else. 3 through 10. I mean, really, nobody's really knocked out of the playoff race yet, I'd say, even all the way down to 12. It's a pretty tight race between 4 and 7, and then a few games down below that. But yeah, number 1 is the Quickster. That is me, followed by Pool Party is Over. Maximum Categories is number 3. Colby's Choice Team. What a fantastic name that is at number 4. Shake and Bake at number 5. And then Flat Earth at number 6. And then Pool Party V3 at 7. There's a Pool Party is Over. And then the guy he traded Pool 2, Pool Party V3, which I guess is the 3rd version of that. Super active league, tons of trades. I mean, every week there's 1 or 2 trades. So it's a great league.
Well, that's good to see, especially because for mine and Mitch's league, there's not too many trades in those one. Everyone kind of stand put with the hands they were dealt in regards to the draft. But obviously, there's still lots of active streaming and everything. But the trades is something that's lacking. So at least one of the leagues is popping off with trades, and hopefully once we start the Dynasty League over the offseason, there's going to be a lot of trades in there too. So there'll be more news coming up on that one, probably once we're in the NBA playoffs. That'll do it for today's episode. On behalf of everybody here at Angle Fantasy Basketball, thank you for joining us today. Make sure to check the link in the description down below for our website, as well as all of our social media. You'll be able to see all of our content as soon as it comes out. Also, leave a comment down below. Let us know. Rank War is all about piling on. So who we talked about today do you agree with? What was a rank that you disagreed with? Check out our rankings. Is there some other players that we didn't talk about today that you agree with or disagree with? Let us know. Thank you for watching today. We'll see you later.